Hey guys, Tim Ferriss here. I'm going to show you how I went from very grumpy baby to slightly happier baby. And for those of you who don't know what happy baby is, it looks like this. Referred to a lot in yoga, it's something like this. And another way to think of it would be like this type of position. And I've always had a lot of difficulty with it. It's extremely important for a lot of things. The highly specific, acroyoga, things like that, which I'll show in a minute. And then you have just general hip health. And there are many ways to improve that position. I stalled for probably a year and a half, 2 years. Huge pain. And it turned out a few things were very helpful for me. Weighted stretches combined with presses and a few other things. So I'm going to show you the sequence that I have found most helpful. And it's going to be within the context of acroyoga. So, Kiplin. This is my friend Kiplin Sagmiller at Kiplin, Kiplinn on all the socials. Let's do some bird presses first. So this is a position in acroyoga called bird, and I'm going to be placing my feet basically on her hip bones right here. So the middle of my feet are going to be right here. And you'll see as I go through this what we're going to do. The safest way to get into it, so we can do it with no hands. If we do it no hands, it looks like that. Okay. Generally, if we come down, we're going to use hands. The flyer, I'm the base, flyer, fingers forward is a good way to remember it. And we're just going to come up like that. So very often, I would do the presses with the hands. So that would look like this. Okay. But I, these days, use it with no hands. And when I do this, I'm pointing with the toes slightly. I'm bringing the knees down. And I am trying to keep my tailbone on the ground. The temptation will be to roll up. And I want to try to keep this seated, and then I will pull down with my hands towards the ground. And if your feet start slipping out, you can just correct with the hands. You can squeeze the hand to indicate where you want to place the weight, readjust the foot, and then we continue. And I'll typically do 6 repetitions of this. I'm only going to do 2 right now. So we come down. And you can kind of play with the balance of the feet, pointing, and so on. And then coming back up to 90 degrees. All right, I'll do one more. And you can see, you can kind of play with positioning, really trying to pull down into grumpy baby / happy baby. So that's part 1. All right. Now, what I've found is that just putting yourself into this position for extended periods of time doesn't work for me. So I will do 6 repetitions. You noticed 5 or 6 repetitions into max depth just for a second or 2 and then out. And what I found is that there's a compression on the leg when my legs are straight, and I'll show you another example of that in just a few minutes. Then there's traction. So Kiplin, do you want to show just the feet behind the hips traction? So you can do this in as partners where you turn the feet in, and then she's just leaning back on my feet, which is giving me a nice amount of traction in the hips. So I will do this in between many of these exercises. Thank you, Kiplin. And I'll also do that for my wrists. So this is not limited to the hips. I will get, say, a towel of some type, and I will pull on the fingers if I'm doing a lot of handstand work or something like that. So this is all transferable. Okay, so we have bird presses, number 1. Number 2, I'm working on internal and external rotation of the leg and both legs independently. So we're going to do a cartwheel into side star, and I'll also show you some stuff that is not acro dependent. But so if we come up, and then we'll go to the opposite side here. All right, so I'm getting this compression on a single leg. And you'll notice that Kiplin has effectively a 90-degree angle between her legs here. This foot, the bottom foot, is actually very close to the ground. Okay. And we'll do generally 5 to 6 reps on either side is what I typically do as part of the warm-up. All right, so then we're going to cartwheel out. Now, what we're going to do is, instead of having a good amount of external rotation, I'm going to focus on internal rotation, and we will do that going from the bird position, which you've already seen, to a slightly different type of side star. All right. So from here, I'm gonna cock one foot out, and then Kipling is gonna slide onto that foot, and you'll see how she uses her arm support. Now, okay, now this, then we get this rotation and this internal rotation on this leg. Now when I come back, watch how I bend my legs. I'm gonna push with this support leg and catch with the other foot. Then we come up. Then internal rotation. All right. This one is very tough for a lot of women and a lot of guys, in particular guys with stiff hips that don't rotate worth a damn. It's a very therapeutic exercise. Also teaches you how to have soft feet if you're doing more acroyoga or anything that includes some form of hamstring flexibility. Okay, let's dismount. So we come down. All right, so I want to show a few things that are not acro dependent that I sometimes do in between these exercises. So one of them, I'll come over, is this. So this is a rad roller, and one of the guests on my podcast, Amelia Boone, who's the world's most successful female obstacle course racer, taught me, and as did Coach Summer. So Chris Summer, former national team coach for men's gymnastics in the US, that people think of hamstring flexibility, oftentimes the restrictions, they're like, can't touch my toes, are related to the lower legs and the feet. So I will roll out my feet like so, and I will travel with this rad roller. This is not very exciting to watch, but you'll get the idea. So foot is right in the middle here, and I'll generally do it very slowly. And then I'll cock it out like so, and then in. And you can accelerate a lot of your hamstring flexibility progress. So I will do this on the feet, also very good for the forearms. And you can roll them on the floor when you're doing a lot of handstand or straight arm work. Okay. Good idea, I don't always do this, but is to engorge the calves and stretch the Achilles and the calves before you do your hamstring work. It'll just make it a lot easier. All right, now I'll show you a few things because I will often take a break before the next one because I have found it historically very difficult. It's getting a lot easier. Other things that I will do is I'll focus on back rotation also to get the mid back and traps and lats engaged. But this is a kind of a modified like Mark Verstegen type movement. I think Eric Cressy also uses something very similar. I will get into this type of lunge position. What's very important is that my hips are square. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. It's not a warrior pose type of thing. The toes are pointing straight ahead. And then what I'll do is simply drop this elbow flat to the ground and then come up, pinch this leg in and rotate, okay? And then if that is easy, I'll just inch the foot forward and do it again. And as per usual, I will do probably 6 of these, all right? And then you would just do it on the opposite side. And we're just going to kind of max range for a second and then right out. We're not staying for 30 seconds, we're not staying for 2 minutes. That there are options for that, but I don't do them as part of this warm-up. Okay, and once we've done all that, there is one last that I would recommend, especially for guys, and this is just a general warm-up recommendation. Instead of just stretching this way, focusing on what we just did, which is rotation. And an easy way to do that is like this. And this is, I'm gonna blank on his last name, I apologize, Steve, I wanna say Steve Sudell, but I don't think that's right. Steve, who's basically the team doc, also a competitor at Paradiso CrossFit in Venice, showed me this tweak, which is not just doing the freestanding or free squatting rotation, but using a wall to ensure that you don't cheat, that your hips don't translate. So in this case, I have my hip and my shoulder pegged to the wall, and I'm just going to be curling down and then coming straight up. And I asked him, well, if you have pain in your back, how do you know if you should do the exercise or not? And his answer was, if it feels better as you go after say 5 repetitions and your range of motion is increased, that means you do the movement. So that is that. And then the final move that I'll show you is called one is a star press, and then you have a walk to star, and I'll show you what that is. So I like to start with the negative. What does that mean? Negative, we have concentric and then eccentric movement. So the concentric movement, you can see the bicep is contracting, it's getting shorter. Then as you lower, it's getting longer. That's the eccentric or negative. So I start with negatives with star and then go to walk-ups, and I'll show you exactly what that is. So probably good to face this way to show this. All right, so the hand grip, for those of you who might be wondering, is like this. This is the grip that we're using. It's sort of 2 fingers on the wrist and then the hands wrapped as so. And we're trying to maintain a comfortable angle. This is flat, this is steep. You usually end up somewhere in between, and you just like dancing with a partner, we've figured out sort of what grip works for us. Okay. All right, so this is star, and very often the hands or the arms of the flyer, in this case Kipling, are gonna be straight. They can be bent. We can do some crazy stuff like free star, which we don't have to do right now, which is no hands. But the presses, so the negative I mentioned, I'm just going to lower like so, and then right back up. And then I'm gonna do the same on the opposite side, just like that. So you notice this is very grumpy, baby. And then we come up. And then from here, I would do that probably 2 or 3 reps on either side, and then we're just gonna walk down to bat. This is bat or straddle bat. And then we're gonna do a walk up, all right? So this will be pretty self-explanatory. Just like so. And you just do that on both sides. So you gonna do a pop just for fun? And then I'll show you guys what a pop is, just for fun. Don't try this at home. You need professional supervision. Ready? 1, 2. And then you can come out. Ta-da! And that, ladies and gents, especially if you're utilizing Acroyoga, which I think is a great way to improve hip health for L-basing, what I was doing, that is how you can go over time, but pretty quickly, in my case, from very grumpy baby to happy baby. If you enjoyed this video, I have more to share. All of the tools, tactics, cool things that I'm finding. 5 Bullet Friday. It is an exclusive newsletter. It's completely free. I send it out every Friday. Just has 5 bullet points with the coolest, most useful things that I've found or I'm revisiting that week. And you can find it by clicking here. Takes about 5 minutes to read. Super short, very actionable. 5 Bullet Friday, also found at 4hourworkweek.com/Friday.